Our founding fathers in this country had a slogan: life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Now, what on earth is that? Define that, please. You know, really, it's tough to put a picture to that. The real original slogan was life, liberty, and property. The ownership and control of your property. That's essential to freedom. But they said, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. They're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Rights that you can't put a lien against. For instance, do you have the right to breathe? Where does this right come from? From God, right? Do you have to get a permit to do that? No. Do you have the right to get married? Who gives the authority to get married? God does. About 100 years ago, some people got tricked into getting state permission to do something God already said they could do. And there was no such thing as a marriage license until about 100 years ago. And most people don't realize that a marriage license is a contract between you and your husband or wife and the state. You don't have to get a marriage license. Now, if you want to get one, they'll be glad to sell it to you. But you don't have to get one. But our founding fathers had a totally different philosophy. They thought that rights came from God, and they're unalienable. You can't put a lien against them. Now, if you get a bunch of folks together who believe that, they don't make good slaves. They're going to throw the tea in the harbor and rebel against King George, eventually. So, suppose you and a few hundred of your super-rich gazillionaires decided you're going to have meetings a couple times a year and discuss how can we control the entire world. We would like to have us, the smart guys, be the rulers of the world, and everybody else be our rice farmers, our slaves. Now, in Egypt, when Joseph became the ruler of Egypt, what percentage of the profits did he take away from the people? Anybody remember? What was their tax in Egypt? 1/5. That's 20%. You know how much of your income goes to taxes in America today? 45 to 50%. The slaves in Egypt were better off than we are, weren't they? They only took 1/5. Throughout the scriptures, you see that where 10% belongs to God and 10% or 20% max would go to the government. You got to have taxes for certain things. I understand all that, and I pay lots of taxes, okay? But we have gone crazy in this country because a super rich club of real smart guys have been meeting for years trying to develop a system of controlling the world's finances. And one of the key ingredients in getting a one-world government, which the Bible prophesies will come, one of the key ingredients is you have to get people believing there is no creator. They have to think rights come from the government. And probably most of us in this room, believe it or not, already have an awful lot of that philosophy built into us. When you go to get married, you think, oh, I got to go get a marriage license. Now, why do we think that? When a baby's born, you think, I got to get a birth certificate. Why would you think something like that?
We just want to recognize that the right to claim merit on your tax form is granted by the government, and so it might be necessary for that. The right to claim your kids' government taxes. Now, you can argue the tax.
Understand, right.
But once you buy into the tax process, it's like you don't need a driver's license to drive a car, but you do on roads that are basically built by the government.
This opens up a whole can of worms of who gives authority to do what, and what are you going to buy into. If you want to use the Federal Reserve System's money, if you want to use their money and use their banks, see, that's not real money. This is paper, okay? So if you decide you want to use their system, then you have to buy into lots of things. If you want to get a loan at the bank, they may say, well, we require 2 years of tax returns. There's no law that says that. That's a bank policy. And the banks are an arm of the International Monetary Fund, and it all ties together in a very complex web called the Matrix. If you saw the movie The Matrix, that's what they're talking about, this complex web. And if you want to take the blue pill, you can just wake up in bed and just, go back to La La Land. But if you want to take the red pill and really understand it, we've got a video we've produced here called The Straw Man, which goes off into this topic and deals with lots of this. of how you can live just fine in this world without all their strings attached. I've been doing it for a long time. You have to watch which way you walk once in a while. Be careful, because they're always trying to trap you back into the system, into the matrix, but that can certainly be done. We don't advertise the video, but if you want to get it, it's in our, Heidi can get you one, $10 for the video. When you're done, you return it and get your money back. If you want to study this topic, it's a fascinating field of research. But our founding fathers would never have thought about getting a permit to build a building on their property. Their philosophy was, that's my property. I don't have to get your permission to do anything on my property. I mean, that's just the mentality they had. The Revolutionary War, one of the key ingredients was the Boston Tea Party, which was over a tax on the tea, and I believe it was 1% tax. Something like that. It's nothing. And we've gone nuts. But I think one of the major plans toward a new world order that Satan has is eliminating the belief in a creator. And evolution is the great way to do that. And so early in the 1800s, they came up with a plan of how to control the world. The Illuminati did this back in 1776, even with Adam Weishaupt, and there have been modifications to the plan for several hundred years. And the group members changed, but the group itself has kept a consistent goal of world dominance through control of the currency. Right now, none of you have any money. You have a Federal Reserve note, which is not money. That's an IOU to the government. And silver and gold is real money. We don't have any or much of that for sure. Long story. But I believe education was, first of all, public education was called for and planned as part of this major plan toward a one world government. They said, we're going to get a public education system. Then we will secularize it, eliminate God, sanitize it of any mention of God, and teach the kids a philosophy that says, your right to breathe, and your right to work, and your right to drive, and your right to get married comes from the government. And once you get this philosophy ingrained in them that the government gives, the government takes away, you know. Everything comes and rises and falls on government. And believe me, we've got that philosophy here, don't we? Our country is saturated with it. So is most of the other world. But that is a major key ingredient in planning toward a one-world government, which was Satan's plan all along. God's plan in the Bible, if you compare what God said in the Bible compared to what's happening, you see there are very many differences. They talked about every man having his own vine, his own fig tree, owning your own property. They had a system set up in Israel where if you lost your property because you were, poor management or whatever reason, you got it back every 50 years. It's called the Year of Jubilee. Ownership of property is essential. And I think we've lost some of this basic philosophy of what does the Bible say versus what's happening around us. Now, because we're already using Federal Reserve notes and we're already using a Social Security number, the next step is very simple. If you want to continue getting our benefits, you come down and get a little microchip put in your hand or in your forehead, or else you can't buy or sell. See, we're just a few steps away from that. The chip's available right now. I've got a couple of the chips in my office. You can get the chips right now. That's not hard. Somebody told me a few months ago that 75,000 Americans already have one of the chips. Interesting. Yeah, come get a chip.